John Harper was a firefighter who had seen it all: flames swallowing entire buildings, families torn apart by tragedy, and the occasional miraculous rescue. At 42, he had a reputation as a brave but stubborn man, someone who never backed down from a challenge. He was also someone who held deep grudges. John lived in Willow Creek, a small but divided town where political opinions often caused tensions among neighbors. John's personal views were no secret. He was vocal about them, and in a town like Willow Creek, this sometimes made his job complicated. On the other side of town was Daniel Whitaker, a wealthy businessman in his mid-50s. Daniel was known for his strong conservative beliefs. A proud MAGA supporter, Daniel wasn't shy about sharing his views. His mansion, perched on the outskirts of Willow Creek, was a testament to his success. But Daniel wasn't just a man of money and politics. He also believed in giving back to the community in quiet ways. What most people didn't know was that Daniel had anonymously funded several projects in town, including the renovation of the Willow Creek Fire Station. He never sought credit for it, believing that good deeds spoke for themselves. John and Daniel had never met, but John knew of Daniel. The large MAGA flags on Daniel's property and his public stances had made him a topic of conversation at the fire station. For John, Daniel represented everything he disagreed with, and though he had never interacted with the man, his opinion was firmly set. It was a scorching afternoon in July when the call came in. A fire had broken out in one of the wealthiest parts of town. The address caught John's attention immediately. It was Daniel Whitaker's mansion. John's heart sank, but not with sympathy. Instead, he felt a surge of resentment. He hesitated. "It's that MAGA guy's house," John muttered under his breath, loud enough for his colleague Mike to hear. "So what?" Mike replied, tightening his gear. "It's our job, John. We don't pick and choose who we help." But John wasn't convinced. Over the years, his resentment towards people like Daniel had grown into something personal. "Let the guy handle it himself," John said coldly. "He's got money. He can rebuild." The team geared up and raced to the scene. John was the leader, but he held back as they arrived. Flames were raging through the mansion, and Daniel stood outside, coughing and yelling for help. "Please, my wife's inside. She's upstairs," Daniel shouted, desperation clear in his voice. His face was streaked with soot, and tears welled in his eyes. John saw the panic in Daniel's face, but felt no pity. Instead, he turned to his team. "We can't risk it," he said. "The fire's too intense. Let's focus on containing it from spreading to the surrounding areas." Mike looked at John in disbelief. "Are you serious? There's someone inside." But John stood firm. "It's too late," he said. As John ordered the team to focus on protecting the nearby properties, Daniel fell to his knees. His pleas turned into sobs, and John could feel the weight of everyone's eyes on him. The team wasn't used to this side of John. He was usually the first to charge into a burning building, but now he stood frozen, his personal bias clouding his judgment. Just as the flames seemed to engulf the house completely, a loud cry pierced the air. "Help me!" It was Daniel's wife, Margaret. She had managed to make it to a second-floor window, waving frantically for help. John's heart skipped a beat. The reality of his decision hit him like a ton of bricks. He had let his emotions dictate his actions, and now someone's life was on the line. Mike couldn't take it anymore. He shoved past John, grabbing his gear. "I'm going in," he said, determination in his voice. Several other firefighters followed. They managed to rescue Margaret just as the second floor collapsed. She was alive but unconscious, her face covered in soot. Daniel hugged his wife tightly as the medics attended to her. He looked up at John with a mix of gratitude and anger. "Thank you for saving her," he said, though his tone made it clear he knew John hadn't been the one to act. The fire was finally under control, and the mansion was reduced to ashes. John felt a pit in his stomach as he watched the aftermath. He couldn't shake the guilt that was slowly eating away at him. But what came next would change everything. The mayor of Willow Creek arrived at the scene, shaking hands with Daniel. "Mr. Whitaker," the mayor said, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Your generosity has been a blessing to this town. I don't know what we would have done without your donations, especially to the fire station." John froze. "What donations?" he asked, his voice barely audible. The mayor turned to him, surprised. "You didn't know? Mr. Whitaker funded the entire renovation of your fire station last year. The equipment you use, the trucks, everything. It's all because of him." John's face turned pale. The shiny new equipment they had been using for months, the upgrades that had made their jobs so much easier, were all thanks to the man he had refused to help. Daniel, overhearing the conversation, locked eyes with John. "I didn't do it for recognition," he said. "I did it because I believe in supporting those who keep our community safe, no matter what." The weight of the truth was too much for John to bear. That night, he couldn't sleep. He replayed the day's events in his mind, realizing how his own biases had nearly cost someone their life. The next morning, he went to Daniel's temporary lodging. "I need to apologize," John said, standing awkwardly at the doorstep. "I let my feelings get in the way of my duty, and for that, I'm truly sorry." Daniel looked at him for a long moment before nodding. "We all make mistakes," he said. "What matters is that we learn from them." John walked away from that conversation a changed man. He vowed never to let his personal feelings interfere with his duty again. The lesson he learned that day stayed with him for the rest of his life, a reminder that humanity and compassion must always come first, no matter the differences that divide us. In the weeks that followed, the incident became the talk of Willow Creek. Some criticized John for his hesitation, while others admired his courage to admit his mistakes. For John, the opinions of others didn't matter as much as the weight he still carried in his heart. He knew he needed to do more than just apologize. He needed to take action. John organized a meeting at the fire station, inviting the entire community. It wasn't an official town hall, just a gathering to discuss how people could come together despite their differences. To everyone's surprise, Daniel was the first to RSVP. He even offered to sponsor the event, ensuring there was food, drinks, and a welcoming atmosphere. At the gathering, John stood before the crowd, visibly nervous. "I want to start by saying I failed," he began. "I let my personal opinions cloud my judgment. That's not who I want to be, and it's not who I should be as a firefighter. I'm here to make amends and to talk about how we, as a community, can move past the divides that separate us." Daniel took the microphone after John. "I think we've all been guilty of letting our beliefs define how we see others," he said. "What happened to my home wasn't just a personal tragedy, it was a wake-up call for me too. It showed me that we have to stop letting our differences keep us from seeing each other as people first." The room was quiet for a moment, then someone from the back spoke up. "It's easy to blame others, but harder to admit when we're wrong. You both did that. Maybe that's a start for all of us." In the weeks that followed, the people of Willow Creek rallied around Daniel and his family. Volunteers showed up to help clear the debris from his property, and local businesses donated supplies to help rebuild his home. John was one of the first to pick up a shovel, working side by side with Daniel. The two men, who once seemed worlds apart, slowly began to understand each other. As they worked, they talked, not about politics, but about life. John learned that Daniel had grown up in a poor family and had built his fortune through sheer determination. Daniel, in turn, learned about John's struggles as a single father, raising his daughter after his wife passed away. These conversations bridged the gap between them, turning animosity into respect. One day, while taking a break, Daniel handed John a cold bottle of water. "You know," Daniel said, "I don't hold grudges, but I do believe in second chances. You've proven to me that people can change." John nodded, feeling a sense of relief he hadn't felt in weeks. "I appreciate that," he replied, "and for what it's worth, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I deserve it." The fire station renovation had been Daniel's gift to the community, but after the fire, it became a symbol of something greater. The firefighters decided to honor Daniel's contributions by installing a plaque in the station recognizing his generosity. When it was unveiled, Daniel was moved to tears. "This isn't just about me," he said at the ceremony. It's about all of us working together, no matter our differences. For John, the plaque wasn't just a reminder of Daniel's generosity. It was a reminder of his own journey. He had learned that being a hero wasn't about the uniform or the accolades. It was about doing the right thing, even when it was hard. As months turned into years, John and Daniel remained close friends. Their story inspired others in Willow Creek to put aside their differences and work together to strengthen their community. Political disagreements didn't disappear, but they no longer defined how people treated each other. John's daughter, Emma, once asked him, "Dad, why do you and Mr. Whitaker get along so well now? I thought you didn't like him." John smiled. "I learned something important, sweetheart. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about remembering that we're all human, and sometimes it takes a little fire to see that." Years later, when John retired from the fire department, the community threw a celebration in his honor. Daniel was there, standing beside John as they recounted the day that had changed both their lives. "That fire took my home," Daniel said during his speech, "but it gave me something greater, a friend and a lesson in forgiveness." John's story became part of the town's history, passed down as a reminder of the power of second chances and the strength of unity. The fire station, rebuilt with Daniel's help, stood as a beacon of hope, reminding everyone in Willow Creek that even the deepest divides could be bridged with understanding and compassion. And though John would always carry the memory of his mistake, he also carried the knowledge that he had grown from it. In the end, that growth was his greatest achievement. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.